My name's Mark, and this is the most recent in a series of webinars aimed at charities given by Intersys in conjunction with Microsoft. I'm going to let a few more people give it a couple more minutes for a few more people to join. I can see we've got almost 20 people now, but I think we're expecting 40. And it is a Thursday morning. There's always a lot going on. Okay, that's looking a little better. All right, yeah. So as I said, today we are going to talk about Microsoft's newest toy, which is Microsoft Copilot. That's actually not a toy. It is a very, very powerful productivity tool. And we're specifically going to look at how you can use it for charities. Now, this is going to be an introduction, so we're not going to dive too deep, but we are going to look at both the free version and the paid version. But first, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Mark Kirby. I work for a company called Intersys, and I've been in the IT industry for almost 2 decades. My first proper IT job was working as an IT manager at a charity. So the charity was national. We had 4 offices across the UK and around about 120 people. I understand the struggles that that charities can have, because we know that every pound is a donation. And so you really need to make sure that any spend that you make on IT, you're getting the most value out of. I know that I used to, take old computers, put them aside, and then when I got enough of them, I would take the parts out, put them into a Frankenstein PC, because I could get another year or 2 out of that same equipment and, save some donors money, or make sure they got the best value for it. Nowadays, I work, as I said, for Intersys. Intersys is a Microsoft solutions partner. We focus on what's called modern work, which is the Microsoft 365 and Azure specialties. My role as director is I do a lot of IT strategy support for organizations, for charities, for multi-academy trusts, and even for private sector organizations. So what that looks like is I will, work closely with the stakeholders in the company, look to see what where their company is going, where their organization and what their goals are, and try to tie technology into that. And also look at the technology they have already, their technology stack, and making sure they're getting the most value out of that. Because as I said before, I know how important it is to get best value out of any charity investments. But enough about me. Today we're here to talk about Microsoft Copilot. And so this is billed as your everyday AI companion, which is a very nebulous term, because the term AI is very nebulous. So I think a really good place for us to start is to talk about what contemporary AI is and what it isn't. So ever since we had computers, we've been trying to make them intelligent. Your calculator that you had in school was very intelligent, but it was niche. It could do one thing and it could do it really well. And so since we've had computers in the workplace or around the home, we've been trying to make them, or developers have been trying to make them intelligent. And the way that AI works is, or a computer works, is it takes input, it runs a process, and then it gives you the output. So if this happens, then it does this, and then it's going to tell you that. It can only do what it's been told. However, over time, the amount of input and the complexity of the processes that affect the output have increased dramatically. And we start having these things called algorithms. And algorithms is the kind of AI that we've had for the last 10, 20 years. You probably use them already today. Google uses an algorithm to get its search results. And it's much more complex than you just putting in some information and getting an output. what it takes is not only the words that you type into the Google search, it also takes into account a whole list of different features or bits of information. So it looks at the location that you're doing it from. It looks at websites that you have visited, your search history. It also looks at, metadata. So what sites people like you or people that put the same input into have clicked on after doing that search. So it takes all that input, and that's what affects the output. Um, that's another reason that Netflix appears really intelligent. When it's recommending you new shows, because it knows the shows that you'd like, and it's able to reference the data of all the other users that have liked the same shows that you have, and what they've also liked that you haven't watched. So it appears intelligence. If any of you are like me and enjoy video games, video game character reactions are based on these algorithms. If you do this, then they are programmed to do that, to give the facsimile that they're a real person. So, but you've probably noticed that of the last year, 18 months, people are talking about AI a whole lot more and saying, this new thing has changed. It's going to take all our jobs. It's going to take over the world. And that's not quite true. So what we should next talk about is what contemporary AI isn't. It isn't AGI, artificial general intelligence. This is the holy grail of AI developers. It is AI that is comparable intelligence to a human, not just niche in one area, but has general intelligence. And so to do that, you really need a few bits of functionality that that computers don't have. You know, you have you need creativeness. It needs to be able to think in the abstract. It needs to be able to understand context, have background knowledge about things and apply that to its answers. It needs to be able to transfer learning. So take lessons that are learned from, say, playing chess and apply them to politics. The AI nowadays can't do any of that. It also doesn't have an understanding of cause and effect. So it doesn't understand the consequences of its actions. Now, that sounds a little bit more sinister than it is, but it doesn't understand it at all. It doesn't have an idea of time. Um, and all of that kind of combines to say that AI nowadays and computers don't have common sense. So we're very far away from having, the computer from Star Trek or Johnny Five or even HAL 9000. Those, it's such a big leap from where we are now to what that looks like. So what do we have? So we have a large language model. This is that new AI that everyone has been talking about. So this is, as before, an algorithm, but this time the input that it's been given is massive. The first one that came up was ChatGPT, and developed by a company called OpenAI. And this is what Microsoft Copilot is based off of. And ChatGPT was given essentially a snapshot of the internet, everything that was written on the internet to learn from. So essentially, there was very clever processes written to teach ChatGPT how to read and interpret that data and summarize it and give it back in a conversational manner to sound like it's human. Which is why I really like this this image, because it is a computer putting on a human mask, because that's what we've got now with our AIs. Now that said, they are incredibly powerful, but essentially all you're doing is you're speaking to data. It's a lot of data, and the data will speak back in a way that you can understand. So we move on. So we now know what it is that we're dealing with. So what can we do with it? Right now, we're able to do a lot. So we're able to catch up. We're able to use it to reference our own information. So there are two flavors of Copilot, work and web, and I'm combining them both here, but I'll go into the differences in a minute. So we're able to use it to catch up on our meetings. We're able to say what happened during this meeting. Please, summarize my emails for me. Let me know my schedule for next week. We're able to use it to create content. It uses its ability to reference the internet and say, hey, write me a presentation about time management or data security or anything that you want. You're able to get it to draft an email for you and actually create information by gathering information from the internet and putting it onto your page. As I said, it's able to reference all that information, so you can ask it a lot of questions. Give me some ideas for a 3-day trip to Hawaii. You may even want to make it even more specific. So you could say, give me ideas for a 3-day trip to Hawaii for people that don't like the beach. And it's able to reference all of that knowledge that it's got and give you some concise answers. Now, I say that with a caveat. As with anything on the internet, you do need to take everything with a pinch of salt. AI is really good for providing an initial answer for something, but think of it as we did with Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a really good place to start, but you shouldn't take that as gospel, and that shouldn't be your last stop. So finally, you're also able to use it to edit things. If I sometimes, particularly late at night, if I'm trying to write an email, it will come out as a stream of consciousness. And I might take that information, put it into Copilot and say, can you rewrite this to make this sound more professional? You can also use it to change the tone. You can say, make this email more assertive, or actually maybe make it politer. And you can even add images and create images with this AI, which you can insert in your documents and things. So, as I mentioned before, there are two different flavors of Copilot, Copilot Web and Copilot Work. Now we're going to talk about Web first. So Copilot Web is free. It is built in to Windows 11 devices, and it's freely available online for everyone that doesn't have Windows 11. It's designed for the general public, and it provides a lot of the kind of the general prompts referencing the internet. It doesn't have access to your data, and also it doesn't have the same security features that that the Copilot Work has. So I wouldn't be copying and pasting sensitive information and putting it in there. Although you're probably going to be fine, it's just not worth the risk. And as I said, it's free. Now, on the other hand, where things really get interesting is Copilot Work. So Copilot Work links into Microsoft 365 using something called the Graph API. It integrates directly with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. And it's able to reference all the information that you have access to within your organization. So it's able to emails, your calendar, your any files that you have access to in Teams, SharePoint, or even OneDrive. And the nice thing about it is it has built-in security. So any prompts that you're putting in, any data that you're feeding it, never leaves your Microsoft 365 environment. The unfortunate thing is it's not free. It costs $30 per month, which is just over 20 in real money. And unfortunately, that's the same for charities as it is for private sector. Currently there is no charitable discount, but that may change in the future. So the reason that you would use these things is they can save so much time. And I'll give you a perfect example now. This chart that I've created, I actually created with one prompt into Copilot. I said, give me a table showing the differences between Microsoft Copilot Web versus Work. And so you can see here, that's already saved me 20 minutes. And all I did was copy and paste that directly into the slide. So now we're going to go and take a look at the free version of Copilot Web. So do feel free to follow along with me. It's just copilot.microsoft.com. And I'm going to share my screen. I am from now on going to be flicking between the presentation and live demonstrations. The unfortunate nature of Copilot work is that there is a lot of sensitive information in there, so I can't show you everything. So just one second. Here we go. Okay. So here we can see my version of Copilot. So we're just at copilot.microsoft.com, and you can see here I've got two options: web and work. Now the web is the free one. If you have a Microsoft account, a free Microsoft account, you can sign in and you will have access to Copilot Web. It will look slightly different. It will look like this, but a lot of the functionality is the same. I'm going to continue using my one because it is slightly faster. So, what can we do here? We can see we've got a few options here. We can start a knock-knock joke, should we want to. And that will just generate something for us to chat to. Oh dear, it's going to be bad. Let's just. Okay, that's very much a dad joke, but we'll forgive it. But as you can see, there's a lot that you can do with this. So what I'm going to do is start on a new topic, and I'm going to ask it a question to really help me. Say I was a social media manager at a charity, and or more likely, given responsible for social media and didn't have any experience in it, I would say, let's suggest some inexpensive ways to optimize my social media presence for my charity. So I'm going to click on this. It's now going to go out to the internet, and it's going to find some websites with corresponding information, and it will give me a condensed list. And so as you can see down the bottom here, as it's coming through, it is actually referencing the information that it's giving us. And so you can see by the numbers which website it got which thing from. And you can see, if you're reading through this, these are really, really useful things to see. You know, user-generated content, get people to share authentic stories, behind the scenes glimpses, videos. These are really, really useful things that don't cost much. Collaborate with influencers, make sure you base things around hashtags. Really useful to see. And because I'm having this conversation with ChatGPT, it remembers my previous prompts in this conversation. So I can say, you've got some suggestions for further prompts, but I could say, can you tell me what not to do? So this is important because this is just a conversation now. I haven't told her anything about the social media or my presence. It just remembers it from the conversation. So you can see it remembers that I'm a charity, that I'm working on social media, and it tells us this list that it's got from these different websites. Also, once again, very useful advice. Don't post too frequently, and don't ignore the social aspect. I see people do that a lot. Half the engagement you're going to get is actually by responding to comments and participating in conversations. So how you get out there with your voice. Once again, I can see the references here, and if I wanted to find out where something came from, I could hover over it. It tells me, and then I could actually click through and go to the article that it's referencing. Not in this case, because I have to register. But yeah, as you can see with most things, I can just click through and I get that information. Okay. So another thing that I think is incredibly useful is if you're like me and have to deal a little bit with data security and policies and whatnot, policy writing is one of my least favorite things. So I'm going to start a new topic, and I'm going to say, write me a GDPR compliant data security policy for a charity that deals with vulnerable children in the UK. So I'm going to hit submit. Now, there's a few things to note about this prompt. So instead of just saying, write me a data security policy, I've specified a few things. Specified that I want it to comply with GDPR. I've specified that it's for a charity that deals with vulnerable children, and I've specified that it's in the UK. And because of that, it's able to reference all of those things, and it's given me an outline for this. Actually, it's written the whole policy for me, to be fair. And so you can see it's actually complies with the UK General Data Protection UK, so UK GDPR. And this is an incredibly good start. So what I would say is actually, I think I want to add something to that. I can say, can you please add a section on data retention? And so it will now go away. It will reference the UK GDPR. You can see it's referencing from legal documents and gov.uk. And it will give me a separate section on data retention, which is really useful. But looking at it, I can see that section is actually much longer than the rest. So to fit in with my policy, maybe I can tell it, actually, can you make it shorter? And so it knows the reference. It's now going to go away and condense that same policy it gave me. And I'm able to have a back and forth with this till it gets much closer to what I want. And only then will I want to, I can either download everything as a document, or I can simply copy it from the page and paste it into a document of my choosing. So that is incredibly useful. So the other thing you can do with ChatGPT Web is actually, well, I say the other thing, there's many things you can do, but another really useful feature is it integrates with another type of AI called DALL-E. And DALL-E is, if you think of what ChatGPT has done with words, DALL-E has done it with images. So it's looked at, all the images on the internet, and it's able to essentially create whatever you want. It's a melding of everything that you'd see. So one of the ways I use it is my father-in-law sends me a good morning image every morning because he's of that generation and he's very sweet. And so I like to create a good morning image back to him. So I can say, please create, I don't know why I say please, but I always do, a image wishing my father-in-law good morning. So it's actually going to go away. It's going to use this DALL-E and generate an image for me. Actually, usually generates 4 that you can choose from. Once it's done that, I'm able to give additional prompts to change it how I like. So this is an interesting one. It has maybe this. One thing you have to really be careful with these image generations is it struggles a lot with spelling. So it's all right here, but if you look a little bit further down, it starts to get a little bit more gibberish. So you kind of want to avoid as much as you can getting too much information. So you would say customize this further. He likes walks in the park and drinking tea. And so it's going to go away, take those prompts, and make that for me. So there's something that's, because of the nature of AI and the fact that it's taking images from around the internet and merging them together. I wouldn't recommend using these on your website or on any social media. What they are really good for is internal documentation, or even making little custom images for your donors. So I don't know what's happened to that one, but I've got a much nicer image, and if I like, I can just save that image, send it to my WhatsApp later. Yes, so that is WhatsApp Web. As I said, it is free and incredibly useful. What we're going to look at now is WhatsApp Work. And so as you can see here, here's some examples of things that I'm able to do. Catch up on my meetings, look at what's new from a particular person. One thing that I find really useful is I can say, what's the latest with either a person or a client, and it will give me all those updates. Now, unfortunately, as I said before, this is live, this has access to all my data, and so I can't really write a lot of prompts in front of you because I'm not 100% sure what it's going to come back with. But what I can do is go back to our presentation. We can look at how some of these prompts work in real time. So 1 second. Slides. Okay. So here is a really useful way to use it for integrating with your Outlook. So I've asked it, help me prepare for my meeting at 11 a.m. on Thursday. It's today's meeting. And so what it's done is it's taken a look at who's attending the meeting, what the meeting's about, any documents that are referencing the name of that meeting, and the people that I've been working with on it. So you can see, like before, where we've got the references, it's actually referencing specific emails or specific documents that I can go to. It's been able to check on the communications I've had with my team, Faye and Tim, and it's suggested next steps and oh, I've lost it. Next steps and advising me to check my technical setup, make sure my mic's working and everything, because that can always be a bit of a nightmare. Other things I can do with it is I can ask it to summarize my emails for today. And so it goes through, it looks at all of my emails and summarizes them for me. And so, if you're anything like me and you're in meetings all day and you're getting swamped with emails, this is a real godsend to kind of help me keep on top of things without actually having to kind of read through all of the emails that I'm CC'd into that I don't necessarily need to do anything for. So once again, I can take the power of the summary, and I can actually say, well, what tasks do I have from these emails? And so it goes through and it looks at anything that I've been referenced in with work that needs to be done. So it's given me these examples of all the things that I need to do. Once again, I can click on each bit, and so I can link into it. Also, I could ask, say, follow up on point number 4. Give me more details, and it will once again summarize that, give me some more details, and I can dig into it and have a conversation with it about my information the same way as we were doing before with the policy. The other thing I can do is take emails that potentially are written in haste and rewrite them. So here's a great example. I sent this to myself. Nothing is working. You must fix it now. And so I said to Copilot, I used the button that said Coach with Copilot. Certainly, Here's a more professional rendition of that statement. We're currently experiencing technical difficulties that are affecting our operation. Your immediate attention to these issues will be greatly appreciated, which is a much nicer email to receive. It means the same thing, but much nicer. The other thing you can see here from this image is with all email chains, because you may find that you're in a big chain of emails and you don't have time to scroll to the bottom and then start scrolling up, you're able to click on this and it will give you a quick summary of that email chain. Built right into Outlook, incredibly, incredibly useful. So the other thing is you can use it almost as a personal assistant as well. So here you can see I've written, cancel my meetings for the 3rd of June. And it says, okay, well, you've got 5 meetings. These are the ones that you've got. Are you sure you want me to cancel all of these? And to which I said, yes, but please cancel them all except the one marked as leave. And so it will send the cancellation messages across. And it kind of saves me doing it myself. Particularly good if maybe, you've got unexpected leave or you're off ill and you just want someone to, you don't have a PA to call up and cancel all these things. Once again, you've got the references there should you want it. So now we're going to start taking a look at Teams. Once again, it is built into Teams. So there's a Copilot button on the top right, which I'll show you in a second. And you're able to just ask it questions, and it will reference all of your chats and all of your documents within Teams and your calendar as well. So I can say, when's my next meeting with Faye? And it looks through my calendar. It tells me when it is and who organized the meeting. So once again, incredibly useful. Another way of doing it is similar to the Outlook, summarize Teams messages where I was added, when people actually want me to do something. Once again, if you're getting a lot of messages and you're not on top, it's incredibly useful. And so one thing I'd like to point out, which is just great, is it knows a little bit of context about this. So one of my colleagues asked if we were still seeing a particular client tomorrow, to which another one of my colleagues replied that it was cancelled. So it's taken that whole conversation and just given me the most important parts. So this is another amazing, amazing tool. So I'm going to switch across. This is how you can use Copilot to summarize your meetings and help you track follow-up tasks. So this was a meeting that I had last week with in preparation for this very very webinar. Bear with me for one moment while I bring my Teams across. Okay, so here we can see, and I've just double clicked on that meeting in my calendar. And I can see here, I've got, within the chat, I've got the ability to view the recap because the meeting was recorded, or I can just go to the recap button up here. This is an incredibly, incredibly useful page. So, here we can see we've got the recording. That's great. But more so, it has automatically made chapters for this meeting. We can see the different things that we were talking about. And it has broken that down. So if anyone was revisiting it, you can quickly go to the part that's useful for you. We see here under the speakers, who was talking. So clearly this conversation was mostly between myself and Naveed, and with Faye and Tim adding bits and pieces here and there. We've also got on the right-hand side this meeting notes. So some key points about what happened during the meeting. And then you can also see follow-up tasks, and not only what the task is, but who it's been assigned to. And so, once again, as with everything AI, you're going to want someone to check over this. But if you're like me and can't multitask and take minutes and listen to a meeting, it's a godsend. It's a lot easier to go through and make changes than it is to start with a blank page. Now where it gets really interesting is this is not the end. We can see the topics that were discussed in it. These are where the chapters came from. But I can actually query this even more. So I've got my Copilot button up the top right here. And you can see I've also asked it a few things already. And so this is a great question to ask. What was the mood of the meeting? And it has come back with, let's see it generate a new response. See, I was testing this before. The mood of the meeting was generally positive and professional, according to the transcript. Participants expressed praise, appreciation, humor, curiosity about Copilot and its features. There were no signs of conflict, frustration, or dissatisfaction among the speakers, which is about as nice as you can get. But you can see how useful this would be if you're away on leave, but there are important meetings happening that you're interested in. If you get them to record that meeting, you're able to go and kind of query these questions. You're able to dive deeper, ask specific things about specific people, and kind of see, even just from the speakers thing, how engaged people were. If anyone mentions you in particular, and you're not there, you will see that appear in the notes. So really, really powerful tool. But once again, you do have to make sure that you're recording those meetings to get those benefits. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is Word, and once again I'm going to give this a live demo because it's much more exciting. So here is a document that we created a while ago to help companies migrate their data to SharePoint. It's apt now because, of course, to get the most out of Copilot, you want all your data in SharePoint. And it's a tricky project, to say the least. It's not about taking everything you have and dumping it in a new storage system. You really want to build a system from scratch that's going to be fit for how the company is now. So as you can see, it's a relatively longer document, and maybe I don't have time to read it. So what I could do with Copilot is open it up, summarize this documentation, and it will go through, and very quickly it will tell me, give me an overview of each individual section. So, this is a 4-page document. But you can imagine if you had a 60-page document, if you had maybe your insurance terms and conditions or something along those lines, really useful to summarize it. But then again, you can ask it specific questions. So I could say, how many phases in this project? So it will go through, read the document, give me the best answers. So we can see 5 phases and what they are. So once again, this is a simple, shorter document, but incredibly useful for, if you've got a lot to go through and you want to kind of back and forth and ask it questions. You can even see here, what's the purpose of the steering committee? And it's now got to the point where it's indexed to the document, and you're able to kind of have a back and forth, ask it questions. So useful. So the other thing you can do with Word, of course, is very similar to what you will do with ChatGPT Web, is you are able to just start drafting a document. So I can say, write me a document about how Microsoft Copilot can benefit charities. And here, I'm also able to put in a reference file. So if say I'd like to say make it like this document, in this style, it will do that. So once again, this is very similar to the ChatGPT output, but it's just incredibly useful because it's in Word and it's already making you can see it's made the headings and subheadings. So the document already has that navigation built into it. So really useful. Now, if I look at that, I think, oh, that looks great. But actually, I want to change it. I want to put it in a particular tone. For those of you that are in marketing or marketing adjacent, you probably know you might have a company voice document. So you could say, make it sound in this voice. But for a good example, I could say, make it sound like a turn of the century. Hit next. And that's going to rewrite as if it was a turn of the century Cockney, which means ditching a lot of the H's. I mean, that's a lovely, it's an example, but you can see how powerful it is. Particularly if you've already defined, what your voice is and how you'd like to change it. So once that's on, I can click keep it and then go about editing it as if it was a regular document. So now we get to the point where it starts getting really powerful. So if I would save that document in my save that in my OneDrive, and I'm like, well, actually, I need to do a presentation on this. So I go over to PowerPoint. And I'm going to open up a new presentation. Click on my Copilot on the side. And I'm going to choose create a presentation from a file. So we can see here that it has looked at my recent documents. I can type in anything I want and search. But what I'm going to do is actually take this How Copilot Can Help Charities, which I generated a couple of hours ago from ChatGPT. And I'm going to create a new presentation from that. And so what it's going to do is read the document. It's going to decide what slides should be created. It's going to get the text for those slides. It will format them. It will even find suitable images and put them in, and even create speaker notes for each one of those slides. So that's something that could potentially take 3-4 hours for someone to do. And though, you should, as with everything else, review it, make changes, make it your own. It's an incredible starting point. And so we can see the slides here that it's created. It's decided on this style, which is actually quite striking. It's made its agenda. We're looking at the overview, and here we can see down the bottom, it's made these speaker notes. And there's not much on that one, but it also includes the original content. We can see it's found images and added them in. And though, like I say, I'd recommend you you go through this document and then change it to make it your own. You're probably not going to get fired if you present that. Really, really good start. So those are the very basics of how Copilot work has been integrated into the 365. Now we're going to talk. Oh, if my mouse would stay still. A little bit about how to get the most out of the prompts that you make. So we look here and we think, what do you want Copilot to do? And be specific. Numbers of bullet points, really useful. Numbers of ideas. you got to give the context. So not only what it's doing, but also who you are and what you're looking to achieve. I might say, pretend that you are an IT specialist and help me prepare for a meeting focusing on migrating their systems to the cloud. Your expectations, so what you want things to sound like. As I said, if you've got your company voice, a really good time to include that. And then add source information, any examples, and any information that's going to be relevant to help it create the document. And so once you do that, then you're able to kind of work on it and guide the response. So like I did before with the Copilot Web, and I was able to, say, make this more like this, have a conversation with it, don't accept the first output as the best, talk to it and get it to get as close as you can before you take it out and start editing it yourself. And then, of course, always double check the results, particularly if you're citing information. Just cross-reference it and verify any information that you're putting in there. So what do you need to do to get prepared for Copilot? And the best advice is to be cautious with your adoption. Copilot, as you can see, is a very, very powerful tool, but it is also a test on your organization's document storage methods. So if you have set up your organization with least permissive access, so people only have access to the files that they need to work on, you're not going to have any issues. If you have, however, a flat structure and everyone's got access to everything, even though they might not have known that before, it's once they get Copilot, it's not going to take them long to start asking questions like, what is Mr. X's salary? Name the last disciplinary meetings that were had for all the employees. And if they have access to that information, Copilot will have indexed it and will give them their answers for it. So you really need to be careful with your implementation. And you also need to, I would suggest, rolling it out very slowly to 1 or 2 people that already have a lot of access. We started in my organization with just, directors having access, and then we took the time to understand what it could do, how it could benefit other units, and then we gave it to them after testing. Copilot and AI in general is in a constant state of flux because they are, it's new technology. They're always adding functionality and things to it. So I would recommend that you have a team within your organization that, maybe meets, once a quarter or something to talk about how you can use AI, what the new developments are, and, what dangers or anything that you should be looking out for. And so that's all for now. I realize there's been a lot that we've gone through, and we are really just scratching the surface of Copilot. I am at the point where I now know enough about Copilot to know that there is so much more that I don't know. But we are available to help with any organizations that are looking to implement it, to give advice or anything. But for the time being now, I'd like to open up for questions.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. We've got a couple of questions here. A couple of them were on our presentation, so I don't know whether you've covered them to their satisfaction, but let's go through them. Can you explain the advantages of using Copilot as opposed to just ChatGPT?
Yes. So as I said before, with Copilot Web, there isn't as great advantages. The one thing is you do get the access to DALL-E and creating images, which you don't get with ChatGPT unless you pay for it. But Copilot Work, which ChatGPT is $20 a month, Copilot is $30. Copilot work, that the fact that you're able to access your own information, the fact that it integrates into Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I didn't even touch on what you can do in Excel, and it's a lot. Is massive.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Mark. Hope that answers that question. If it doesn't, please come back to us and we'll dig in a little bit deeper. You've got my personal contact details there. Question number 2, you mentioned the work option charges around £20 per month. A, is that per person? And B, can you switch it on and off for periods?
You can switch it on and off for periods, and yes, it is per person. But once again, it's not, you can have it just for certain members. You don't need to roll it out to the entire organization. In fact, we strongly advise that you don't.
Okay, thanks, Mark. We've got another one here. What is the best way to prepare for rolling out Copilot, and how long could that process take? We are exploring currently and have some reservations about access to data. Sorry, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you on that one.
Yeah, so it's the same concerns as we had internally. Even as a company that we are security first, we do SharePoint projects. You kind of have that little bit of worry about what's going to happen when you open Pandora's box, so to speak. Which is why we always recommend starting with the with senior people that have access to sensitive information already, so they can test the limits of it. And then, just making sure you've done a full review of your access control, particularly around any sensitive information that you wouldn't want getting out internally. So starting off with an exercise in security, and your data process. Also, I'd recommend, if you're using SharePoint, putting on enabling sensitivity labels where you can mark documents as confidential. You can specifically make sure that they don't get referenced by Copilot, even if the user does have access to them.
Fabulous. Thanks, Mark. And one more here, one more at the moment. Who knows what else is going to come up? But at the moment, what are the ethical considerations of using AI in the charity section, such as data security and privacy?
So as I said, with the Copilot for Work, none of the information that you're putting in there will go outside the organization. With Copilot Web, it's should be true, but there's no guarantees. So if you are going to be using it to paste potentially sensitive information, I would redact anything first, or change names. We change company names to something like Contoso, just so that you're not giving away any sensitive information. Regarding the ethical concerns, it's a little bit more of a gray area, because Chat GPT and Copilot are not, they're not smart. They don't create information. They just take information that's out there and compress it together. So particularly if you're generating images, the images can be taken from copyrighted images that artists have made, which is why I would never recommend putting them on your social media or on your website. It's fine for internal use, but if you are going to get something done, it's best that you commission an actual artist.
Fabulous, Mark. Well, that's the questions that people have come up with. I'd like to thank you, Mark, for presenting this. I've learned a lot. It's informative. And I guess I'd like to finish off with, if anybody else has got any questions that they'd rather be less public with, please send me an email and we'll respond to you individually. I think with that, we're about there, Mark. Any other thoughts?
No other thoughts. But thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Do reach out to Tim or myself if you have any further questions.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.